Great evening, guys. Thank you so very much for joining us again on another exciting Upgrade Mastery just for you with Mr. Upgrade. Yes, this is another Friday, and I'm super excited to be here again. How are you doing? How was your week? How's your week? What did you do this week? By the way, Happy New Month, everyone. Welcome to August. Yes, welcome to August, your month of supernatural settlement. Yes, God will settle you supernaturally this month, and I know that you believe that, right? So you can type amen to that because you will be settled supernaturally this month of August. Yes, this is the 8th month in the year, and the year is just moving fast, moving fast. How has the year been for you so far? How was the month of July? What did you do in the month of July? What were the things that you were able to achieve in the month of July, right? How's the month of July for you? Was it amazing? Was it phenomenal? Was it just there, or was it something you really enjoy? You had amazing gifts. You had amazing time. What was July for you? Regardless of how July was, this is August. Yes, and this is the time where you have August visitors, right? Special visitors, and this is the time where God will settle you supernaturally, right? Expect supernatural settlement this month. This is the year 2024, the year of the supernatural. By the way, how are you doing? Right? If you live in Nigeria, it's currently a season of protests, national protests all around the country from August 1st to August 10th. So this is actually day two of the protests. Some lives have been lost. People are still on the street protesting against bad governance, right? Well, God will see us through in Nigeria. How are you doing? Are you protesting? Are you outside on the streets? What's it like for you? How's it been for you so far in this month of August, right? What are the plans that you have, right? What are the things that you hope to be able to achieve this month of August, right? One thing is certain, life will go on. That's one thing that is certain, regardless of what's happening right now, life would go on. And today we're going to talk about something quite interesting that I know will really be of immense help and benefit to all of us. And we're going to look at talking about system, right? System. And this is something that is very, very important that I feel we really need to pay attention to, right? Because it's not just enough to do things, you must begin to do things systematically, do things in a system format, right? Do things with system. In the body, there's the cell, there's the tissue, there's the organ, and there's the system. Even the human body recognizes system, right? Anyways, we're going to talk about that much later. But like we always do here, we get to take your questions, we get to share our experiences of the week, we get to talk about our touch points, the things that really stood out for us this week, the things that really feel okay, we really learned this week. We went away from July into August in this week. So we moved from July and got into August this week. So how's the week been for you? What was it like on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and today, Friday? How's it been for you so far? How are you holding up so far? What is the one thing that has stood out for you? If you were to use one word to describe your week, what word would that be for you? Right? I know also when we get to do these conversations on Fridays, we get to share the reviews from our upgrade belief systems, right? Our belief systems that we share every week, we get to do a review here so we can just talk about it and go over them again, and then we'll move into the conversation for today. The conversation of the day is system. Very important that we understand system. It's very important that we talk about system. It's very important that we understand what systems are, right? So we're going to talk about that much later. But for now, do well to invite your friends, right? Share the links. Share the links, share the links, share the links, right? Share it on your status, share it on your WhatsApp group, share it on your Twitter, share it on your Instagram story. Just keep sharing. Share to your friends, your families, your loved one. even your enemies. Share the link so that they too can learn the same way you are learning. Thank you so very much for being here. I'm super glad that you're here. So let's get into the conversation on our belief systems for the week. All right. So we started this week by talking about the agenda of the weekend. You know, on Sunday, when we do our Sunday Upgrade Live with Mr. Upgrade, we talk about the agenda, right? And I've been sharing snippets of that conversation all through the week on agenda. Why agenda is important that we understand what is really happening. That beyond all the things that we see is an agenda that we really need to understand what is happening. And so we'll talk about agenda extensively. So just in case you missed out on that conversation, go back on the channel and look for agenda, right? You see the topic agenda. Please go and watch it and please share it so that more people get to understand the agenda that is having sway in our day. So we felt we could pick up the week conversation from there on agenda when we talked about the agenda of the wicked, right? And we said here, the wicked always has an agenda. You either stand against the agenda of the wicked or you are part of the agenda of the wicked. The wicked always have an agenda. You know, in the ancient text, we see the agenda of the wicked in the story of Esther, Mordecai, and Haman. Right? Haman, for nothing but sheer pride and arrogance, got the king to sign the decree that all the Jews will be eliminated on a particular date. Now, the decree was circulated all around the provinces, but Mordecai chose to respond differently. Right? And you know how that story ends. Another agenda of the wicked was when the princes conspired against Daniel in Daniel chapter 6, and they made the king sign a decree that no one should pray to any other god apart from the king for 30 days. And the king did sign that decree, and Daniel was eventually thrown into the lion's den. Right? Now, those are some agendas of the wicked, right? Agenda of the wicked. Also, we went on to discuss there to say this, that this is exactly the agenda of the wicked. This is how it works. It starts small and then it spreads like a virus, right? The agenda of the wicked have always been to taunt, humiliate, and silence the voice of the believers, and it has not changed even till date. We saw that in the time of Daniel, right? We saw that in the time of Esther, Mordecai, and Haman, right? It still has not changed. Now, three simple things about the agenda of the wicked. Number one, it is never hidden. So they don't hide the agenda. It's never hidden. It's never hidden. It's obvious, but you may not be aware, but it's never hidden. Number two, it has a goal. The agenda has a goal. And number three, it is strongly advocated for. There are people who strongly push and advocate for the agenda of the wicked. And they don't even hide it anymore. You know, back in the day, they just, no, they don't hide it anymore. They are loud and bold about it, about the agenda of the wicked. Now, while men slept, the enemy came and planted bad seed. Remember that scripture, while men slept, right? In the agenda of the wicked, it is being carried out even while men are awake. The scripture tells us while men slept, the enemy came and planted bad seed. The agenda of the wicked is carried out even when people are awake. See, it is amazing how people are oblivious of the obvious agenda of the wicked in the world today. People are oblivious of the agenda of the wicked in the world today. And you see, the agenda of the wicked still remains global domination, with the ushering in of the new world order. That's the agenda of the wicked. Global domination and bringing in the new world order. And you see, when you don't do what is right, you end up doing what is left, and which is aligning to the agenda of the wicked. You see, in today's world, you cannot sit on the fence. You take a side, right? You are either for the agenda of the kingdom, or you are unknowingly pushing the agenda of the wicked. There is no middle ground. There's no sitting on the fence. And you see, the agenda of the wicked is to steal, to kill, and to destroy, which is taking different style and model today. Still the agenda, to steal, to kill, to destroy. Right? So that was how we started the week, looking at the agenda of the wicked. And then we moved away from that conversation during the week, and we went to talk about obvious but not obvious. Now, this is a very important part also in the agenda of the wicked. It is obvious, but it's not obvious. You can see it, but you can't see it, right? And we explained it further. We said, in a world where agenda is the order of the day, so many things are obvious, but not obvious. You know what they say, abracadabra, you are seeing it, but you're not seeing it, right? That's how the agenda of the wicked is. It is obvious, but it's not obvious. You see, in the ancient text, Samson didn't recognize what Delilah was about because her agenda was obvious, but not obvious. You know, people say Delilah was a harlot, but the truth is this: Delilah was just a young lady who loved money more than she loved Samson. And she had an agenda, which was to get the secret of Samson's strength and reveal it to the enemy. Right? But Samson did not understand the agenda that Delilah had. Because Delilah was just focused on her agenda, and she persisted and put pressure on Samson to reveal the secret of his strength. And 3 different times, Delilah asked Samson, and Samson told her something totally different. And she tried it out and discovered that it didn't work. Samson should have received sense to know that this lady is up to something. That's why I will tell you that the agenda of the wicked is obvious, but it's not obvious. Right? Now, the moment Samson eventually told her the real secret of his strength, she made him sleep on her lap, shave off all his head, and called the enemies to capture him, which they did, and he took out his eyes. So you see, this is literally an example of obvious but not obvious. By the time Samson realized what was happening, his hair has been shaved, his 2 eyes has been plucked out. The mighty Samson became a tool of mockery and entertainment because he was captured and put in chains. This was the same Samson who, with the jawbone of an ass, killed 1,000 soldiers. Not just 1,000 men, 1,000 soldiers with the jawbone of an ass. Same Samson that could take up the city gate and put on his shoulder and carry it up to a mountain. Yet, because what was obvious but not obvious, Delilah got his secret of strength, and she shaved off his hair, and Samson was now being used for entertainment. Now, 3 simple things about obvious but not obvious. Number 1, it's an open secret. Number 2, people are too busy and ignorant to understand. Number 3, people are too distracted with frivolities. This is why so many things are obvious but not obvious. It's an open secret. People are too busy and ignorant to understand. People are too distracted with frivolities. You see, nothing is hidden. It is obvious, but not obvious because people are not paying attention. Some people realize what is happening when it has already happened because it is obvious, but not obvious. And you see, it is obvious, but not obvious because many people are just too oblivious. So it's obvious, but it's not obvious because many people are just oblivious. Understand this, that when you don't pay attention, you miss out on what is obvious, but not obvious. Interestingly, the agenda of the wicked is obvious, but not obvious. Hence, why it is having a field day today. It is obvious, but it's not obvious. The agenda of the wicked. Now, we moved on from that into something very interesting again in the week, and we talked about don't allow yourself be distracted. Right now, a lot of things is happening in the world today. A lot of things, globally, locally, a lot of things happening in the world today. But one thing is key: do not allow yourself to be distracted. Because the reason why you can't see what is obvious in what is obvious is because you are distracted. So don't allow yourself to be distracted. Because it's not things that distract you, it is you that distract you. See, distraction has nothing on you until you allow yourself to be distracted. See, in the ancient text, when Jesus came to the house of Mary, Martha, and Lazarus, right? Mary sat at the feet of Jesus, listening to him attentively, but Martha was busy about so many other things. And then Martha came to Jesus and said, Jesus, tell Mary to come and join me to be busy with other things. Literally, you see that in Luke chapter 10, from verse 38 downwards, right? Now, this is something that I want us to understand. You see, Martha became exasperated with finishing the numerous household chores in preparation for the guests. So she interrupted Jesus and said, Lord, don't you think it's unfair that my sister left me to do all the work by myself? You should tell her to get up and help me. The Lord answered Martha, Martha, my beloved Martha. Okay, so apologies for the break in transmission. We had a little bit of technical challenge, but we're right back. We're back again. You're back now. So let me continue from where we left off before the break in transmission. So Jesus said to Martha, Martha, my beloved Martha, right? Why are you upset and troubled, pulled away by these many distractions? Mary has discovered one thing most important by choosing to sit at my feet. She is undistracted, and I will not take this privilege from her. It was very obvious that Martha allowed herself to be distracted, but Mary decided instead to be undistracted. You can be like Mary and don't allow yourself to be distracted. I wanted to say three simple reasons why you should not allow yourself to be distracted. Number one, you would have yourself to blame. Number two, you owe it to yourself to be focused. Number three, you can observe the agenda in play when you are not distracted. And we went on to say you must identify and know your distractions. Very important. You must identify and know your distractions and don't allow yourself to be distracted. You see, you allow yourself to be distracted when you follow the crowd. The crowd is never right. Yes, I know people always like to say, oh, the voice of the people is the voice of God. No, no, no. The voice of the people is the voice of the people, is not the voice of God. For the fact that something is viral doesn't mean that you should focus on it. It may be a viral distraction from what is truly happening. Yes, you know, in today's world, a lot of things go viral. Yes, for the fact that something is viral doesn't mean you should put your focus on it. It can just be a viral distraction from what is truly happening. And when to say that, funny how those who have allowed themselves to be distracted are busy trying to recruit others to join their distraction. It's amazing. You know, they say misery loves company. It's funny how people who allow themselves to be distracted are busy trying to recruit others to join their distraction. And you see, the crowd are not always smart. They are programmable and they are easily deceived. Don't allow yourself to be distracted. Be like Mary, who was undistracted. Yes, there's so many things happening around, but choose to not allow yourself to be distracted. Focus on your focus. Focus on your priority, not on your frivolity. Don't allow yourself to be distracted. Right? And we went on from that conversation and we went to talk about stop dealing with symptoms. Now, I love this conversation a lot because I've seen this happen with a lot of people. They focus on symptoms and they forget the root cause. You see, dealing with symptoms is never the best way to permanently solve a problem. So stop dealing with symptoms. You see, in the ancient text, the use of bulls were offered once a year by the high priest was never enough in cleansing the sin of man until the blood of Jesus was shed. And then the veil in the temple was rent from top to bottom. That paid the ultimate sacrifice. So no more shedding of blood every year. It was once and for all. No wonder on the cross, he cried out, "It is finished." Right? And the veil was torn from top to bottom. You see, now the nature of sin has been totally dealt with, and you can now come boldly to the throne of grace because we are now new creations, all things are passed away. It is always easier to deal with the root cause than with the symptoms. Symptoms sometimes may even seem to subside, but the root cause is still there and has not been dealt with. It is always wise that we don't waste resources dealing with symptoms while neglecting root cause. Now, three simple reasons to stop dealing with symptoms. Number one, it doesn't solve the problem permanently. When you deal with symptoms, it doesn't solve the problem permanently. Number two, it can create more problems. Dealing with symptoms create more problems for you eventually. Number three, it is not addressing the real issues. It's not addressing the real challenge. Now, if symptoms persist, please contact your doctor. It is a well-known caveat, which is a reminder to stop dealing with symptoms. It's a well-known caveat. We see it all the time. If symptoms persist, please contact your doctor. Why? Because you should not be dealing with symptoms, but the root cause. Stop dealing with symptoms because it only just gives temporary solution for now for more problems later. Dealing with symptoms is temporary solution for now for more problems later. And we said that you don't uproot a tree by cutting off the branches. You uproot a tree by taking out the roots. Dealing with symptoms is actually an effort in futility because it fixes or solves nothing. When you are dealing with symptoms, you are not fixing anything, you are not solving anything. It's just an effort in futility. So stop dealing with symptoms and focus on the root cause. And we wrapped up our conversation by talking about the real challenge. So, what is the real challenge? Right? We say, okay, stop dealing with symptoms because there is the root cause. So, what is that root cause? That is the real challenge. And we said here that sometimes people don't even realize what the real challenge is. The obvious challenge may not even be the real challenge. You see, in the ancient text, why children of Israel complained for meat in the wilderness, the real challenge was their lack of faith and gratitude. God, who had been able to provide manna for them in the wilderness, was capable of providing meat, which he actually did. Another incident of the real challenge was when Moses sent out 12 spies, and 10 of them said that the inhabitants of the land were giants and they were like grasshoppers in their eyes. The real challenge was that how they perceived themselves. That was the real challenge. But two among the 12, Caleb and Joshua, said, nah, these people are not as you guys are saying this. The land indeed is good, but these people, we can take the land. They are like bread for us. Their strength has gone out of them. Three simple reasons about the real challenge. Number one, it is the root of the matter. The real challenge is actually the root of the matter. It's not the symptoms. It's the root of the matter. Like they'll say, it is the cocoa of the matter. Number two, until it is solved, the problem will continue. Until the real challenge is solved, the problem will continue. It will take a new shape, it will take a new form, take a new dimension, but the problem will continue until the real challenge is solved. Number three, it can be masked with other distractions. So the real challenge can be masked with other distractions. But know this, The real challenge is what must be addressed if ever there will be a lasting solution. If ever we want to see a lasting solution to the problems, then the real challenge must be solved. Otherwise, the problem will come up again in another form, in another dimension, because the real challenge has not been dealt with, it has not been solved. See this. Unfortunately, the real challenge of a people is not necessarily the leaders, but the people. Now you're going to say, but the leaders that are supposed to be doing what they're supposed to be doing. No, no, no. Who are the leaders? The leaders are people from the people. So the real challenge is the people. I often say this, that the real challenge of Nigeria are Nigerians, because they are not foreigners that are in government. They are not foreigners that are leaders. They are not foreigners that are in places of authority, but Nigerians. Right? So if you have a Nigerian who thinks right, then Nigeria will be right. So the real challenge of a people are not the leaders, they are the people, because every nation gets the leaders it deserves. Every nation gets the leaders it deserves. So the real challenge of the people are not the leaders, but the people. And we're going to talk about, interestingly, while people focus on what seems to be the challenge, they ignore the real challenge. While people focus on what may look like the real challenge, they ignore what really is the challenge. Only real people can fix real challenge. People who are not real to themselves can never fix the real challenge. And interestingly, the real challenge is never fixed overnight, but it is fixed when the system is fixed. So the real challenge is not fixed overnight, but it is fixed when the system is fixed. Now, this leads us to our conversation today on system, right? Our conversation today is on system. System. Now, I want us to understand this. I want us to understand this system. System. When we talk about system, what actually comes to mind? Now, there's a scripture that really, really helps to buttress this system conversation. The scripture in Genesis 41. All right. Now, in Genesis 41, that's where I'm going to begin the conversation from. Genesis 41, that was when Pharaoh had those two dreams in one night. And he called for his wise men to interpret the dream. In fact, he told them to tell him the dream and the interpretation. And they couldn't. Then suddenly the butler remembered that, oh, I remember one guy in the prison 2 years ago. We had a dream, myself and the baker had a dream, and he was able to tell us the interpretation of the dream. And then Pharaoh sent for Joseph to come so that Joseph can now tell him the dream and interpret the dream. So Joseph came. This is Genesis 41, right? You see this whole story in Genesis 41. Joseph came and told the dream to Pharaoh and said, indeed, the two dreams are one, right? And indeed, the dream will surely come to pass. He had the 7 fat calf and the 7 slim calf. And then the 7 slim calf ate up the 7 fat calf. And they were still slim. And then he had 7 heads of corn, and then another 7 heads of corn, the slim and the fat. And the slim ate the fat. And Joseph said, both dreams are the same. And it is certain that God will make this thing happen. Now, Joseph interpreted the dream. But beyond Joseph interpreting the dream, Joseph gave a system for how the dream should be implemented. This is where this system conversation begins from. The first S in system is strategy. Strategy. Now, any system that works was first conceived as a strategy. So if you want to fix system, if you want to put system in place, there must be a strategy. Now, this was the strategy that Joseph told Pharaoh in Genesis 41. From verse 33, Joseph continued, "Let Pharaoh select a very wise and discerning man and set him over the land of Egypt. Let Pharaoh appoint other officials throughout the land to collect 1/5 of all the crops during the 7 plentiful years." Remember, there were 7 years of plenty and 7 years of famine. "Have them gather all the food of these abundant years that are coming, and under Pharaoh's authority, have the grain stored in the cities for food." Strategy. Store it all as food reserve for the people during the 7 years of famine coming upon Egypt, so that the land will survive the famine. So, creating a system, it starts with having a strategy. Joseph said, select wise people, a wise and discerning man to set him over the land of Egypt. Then let Pharaoh appoint other officials throughout all the land to go and gather 1/5 of all the crops during the 7 years of plenty. So it was not enough that Joseph only just interpreted the dream. Joseph gave a system for how this interpretation would work. Which means even without Joseph being chosen, Pharaoh could have implemented Joseph in the land. The system. The first thing about system that I want us to understand is that system begins with a strategy. It starts with the strategy. Any system that works, there's the strategy behind the system. Look at the systems in the world, the different agendas in the world. There's a strategy behind it. That's why it's working. It's not done on guesswork. It's done based on strategy. So the S in system is strategy. You know, in Acts chapter 6, where there was the challenge with the Grecian widows who felt they were being neglected in the daily ministration, Peter created a system and said, "Look among you for 7 honest men, full of the Holy Ghost, full of faith, full of good report, who we will appoint to serve tables, while we will give ourselves to the ministry of the word and prayers." System. That was a strategy. So instead of Peter leaving the ministry of the word and prayers to be serving tables, he devised a strategy to create a system whereby the needs of the widows will be met, but what he needs to do still needs to be done. You also see that again in Genesis, in Exodus, when Moses was leading the children of Israel in the wilderness. And then his father-in-law Laban saw how he was going about judging all the cases, only him attending to everything. And he called him aside and said, "If you continue like this, you're going to die before your time." I'm just paraphrasing. I said, set among these people judges who will judge all the menial matters, and then they will reserve only the main issues for you. System. Anything that works because there's a system. And the very first part of any system is the strategy for the system. So Genesis chapter 41 that we're looking at, Joseph gave the strategy and said, first off, select the person that you put in charge. The S in system is strategy. You are going to collect 1/5 of all the food produce in the 7 years of plenty. Keep them in reserve in food cities. The S in system is strategy. So if you want to create a system, first thing is, what's the strategy that this system would work on? What's the strategy that this system would run with? Yes, you do a small business. What's the strategy for showing up to create a system that even when you are not there, something is still being displayed or showcased about your small business? There must be the strategy. That's how you create a system. The Y in system is you, right? You first create, you are the person to create the system before you can now leave the system to work independent of you. But you first will create the system. So Joseph told Pharaoh, select a very wise and discerning man and set him over the land of Egypt. That was you. That's the you phase in the system. That's the you phase in the system. So you first, you would create the system before you now step out of the system to allow the system to work on its own, because now the system will now have structure. Now see how system works. First, you have a strategy of what you want to do. Then you are involved in the system. Because nobody best understands the system you want to create but you. So you see, Genesis 41, Joseph was the person put in charge for the system. That's why when the famine started, the Pharaoh had to send people to meet Joseph to buy food, because Joseph was the one that was put in charge of the system. So he did not say, oh, because I'm Pharaoh, now that there's famine, everybody come to me. No, he sent them back to Joseph because he had placed someone in charge of the system. So there's always the you factor in the system. Even if the system that is being programmed with technology, there's still the you that programs the technology. You know, I watched a documentary a while back, and they said in the factories of the future, there are only going to be two things in the factory of the future: a man and a dog. And they said the man will be there to feed the dog, and the dog will be there to ensure that the man does not touch the machines. Quite interesting, right? But that's the system. But somebody built that system to now leave just a man and a dog, and the man will be there to feed the dog, and the dog will be there to ensure that the man does not touch the machines, the system. So you see, the Y in system is you. For any system to function and to work, it needs your input at the initial stages. And then after a while, the system can work independent of you. But in the beginning, the system needs you for it to be set up and for it to start functioning. The second S in the second S in system is structure. Structure. Now, in system Genesis 41, Joseph put a structure. It says, appoint officials who will collect 1/5 of all the crops each year during the 7 years of plenty. 1/5 structure. They're not collecting all the harvest, they're collecting 1/5 to store. And then instead, have them gather all the food of these abundant years that are coming under Pharaoh's authority, have the grains stored up in the cities for food. So there's a place for storing it, structure. You know, one of the things that happen to many of the farm products that are produced in Nigeria is that they get spoiled in the farm. Why? Because there's no structure to be able to preserve them and transport them to where they'll be further preserved before they are taken to market. No structure. But Joseph was putting structure down here. He says, store it all as food reserve for the people during the 7 years of famine coming upon Egypt, so that the land will survive the famine. Now, the land did not survive the famine because of system, the structure that was in the system. And what was the structure? Collect 1/5 from every year of abundance and store up in the food cities. Structure. So for every system to work, so for every system to work, there must be structure. For every system to work, there must be structure. So Joseph was setting up the structure in front of Pharaoh and said, get officials to collect the harvest, 1/5 of all the harvest in the 7 years of abundance, and store it up in the food cities. Structures. Structures. So the second S in system is structure. So for any system to work and function optimally and maximally, there must be structure. There must be structure. So you see, when you go abroad or you travel out and you see a system that works, it's because there's a structure on ground to make the system work. The T in system is trustworthy, right? System that works are trustworthy. You can trust the system. You can trust the system. You can rely on the system. You know, when Pharaoh appointed Joseph, Pharaoh did not have to bother about anything regarding food because Joseph was trustworthy. You know, Pharaoh said something. He said, Joseph proposal pleased Pharaoh and all his advisors. He said to them, Pharaoh said, now, where can we find anyone else like this one? For he has the Spirit of God in him. So Pharaoh turned to Joseph and said, since God had divinely revealed this to you, there is no one as wise and full of insight as you. I hereby place you in charge of all my affairs, and all my people will obey your commands. Only I, the king, will be greater than you. That's how Joseph became prime minister. But you see, Joseph set up a system that was trustworthy, that Pharaoh could put everything in his charge. Remember, Potiphar had put everything in Joseph's charge. The jailer had put everything in Joseph's charge. Now, Pharaoh has put the whole Egypt in Joseph's charge. Why? Joseph have created a system that is trustworthy. So, creating system is not just chop chop chop. It's not by mouth. Is it trustworthy? Can people put things in your charge because you understand the system that you run with, that you operate with? The E in system is environment. Every system functions in an environment. Every system functions in an environment. That's why some things that can happen in the abroad may not work in Nigeria. Why? Because the environment is different. You know, in some countries abroad, they can protest and then the government of the day can resign. But in Nigeria, in this environment, you will protest, and after the protest, you go back to your house. Nothing would have changed. In fact, things would have gone worse. Why? The system in this environment is different. In the current protest now in Nigeria, some people have already lost their lives. That's the environment. Every system works in an environment, in a certain environment. So you see, in this environment in Egypt, Joseph was put in charge of this environment. Joseph was not put in charge to collect food in the whole world, only in Egypt. But with the way his system functioned and thrived, the whole world came to Egypt to buy food. Does this make sense? Every system functions in an environment. Every system. It works in an environment. It thrives in an environment. And finally, the M in system is a mentality. What system does eventually is to give people a mentality. It's certain mentality. I will say this, that when Joseph interpreted the dream to Pharaoh, I believe Pharaoh would have made a public announcement to all Egyptians of what is going to happen because he was the king. He owed them that obligation. But why didn't they save during their years of plenty? They must have seen Pharaoh storing up grains in the food cities. Why didn't they save theirs? Because immediately the famine started, the people had no food. So they had to start coming to Joseph to buy food. Joseph now opened up the food cities to sell food to the Egyptians. And after a while, the Egyptians didn't have money to buy food. They were selling themselves as slaves to get food. But why didn't they also save up for the 7 years of famine? They had no system. Because if they had a system, they would have had the mentality that works in a system. Every system creates, at the end of the day, a certain mentality. It creates a certain mentality, either for good or for bad. Every system creates a certain mentality. So in the abroad, because of the system they have, They also have a mentality that some things would work if they protest. Some things can change if they protest. So we can't see that for Nigeria. If your memory serves you right, remember 2020, the NSAS. Every system creates a mentality at the end of the day. This is what system is all about. And this is why you must pay attention to systems. First, it starts with a strategy. So whether you do a small business, whatever it is that you do, whether it's a personal brand, you must understand system, strategy. You, the structure, trustworthy, environment, and the mentality. This is what system is about. I see two important things about system that you must always remember is processes and patterns. Processes and patterns. So for system, there are always processes for the system. Look at what Joseph did in Egypt. He gathered 1/5 of all the grains in the years of abundance, processes, and he stored them up in the food cities, processes. And then when the famine came, he was the only one who had food to sell to the world. The second is pattern. For every system, it creates a pattern. I know with pattern, some things become predictable. So it was certain when Joseph was saving food, first year, second year, third year, he was creating a pattern of storage. That by the seventh year, when there was no longer food and then the famine began, there was more than enough to save Egypt and the rest of the world for another 7 years. So these are two important things about system. There is the processes, there is the patterns. So in all that you do, it's expected that you learn how to create systems for yourself. Because you see, doing it the way you're always doing it may not be sustainable as against when you have a system. Joseph could only save Egypt and the world from famine because he created a system. He had the strategy, he was the person involved, he put in structure, he was trustworthy, he understood the environment, and he created a mentality. And guess what? Everyone around, when the famine started coming to Egypt to buy food. Even his own brothers who sold him into slavery came to Egypt to buy food. That's where he met them again because they came to buy food. Right, because he built a system that made people come. So instead of going to look out for people, build your system. When you build your system, people will come. I love one of the things that Archbishop Benson Dahosa would always say. He says, I don't steal sheep, I grow grass. I don't steal sheep, I grow grass. Because when you grow grass, the sheep will come. So guys, it's important that we understand what system is all about. This is just more like an introduction so you understand system. It's about strategy, it's about you, it's about structure, it's about trustworthy, it's about environment, and it's about a mentality. This is how you create system. And for things to work, they work best through system. And things can also be ruined by system. A colleague of mine will always say that the problem with Nigeria is a systemic problem. It's not something that is just on the surface. No, it's a systemic problem. And if it's going to be solved, it's also going to be solved systematically. Because it's system against systems. So, guys, this is the much that we can take on this conversation today. Apologies again for the break in transmission, for the network, for the power. We apologize for those breaks, right? And we hope that you were able to still connect and follow through to the end of the conversation. We appreciate you for joining. Thank you so much for being here. And we hope that you have learned something from this conversation today where we talk about systems. Remember, there's always more on the ugly side of life. And that's why we encourage you to leave good behind so that you can upgrade. Thank you so much for watching. God bless you. And go ahead and create systems for your personal brands and for your businesses because you do much more when you have systems in place. Thank you so much for watching. God bless you.